The American Society of Civil Engineers, we've had a long history with infrastructure in the United States. And I just want to make a couple points about really start off with the report card, a bit about the IIJA itself, or the bill, commentary about our standards, and really just asset management best practice. And so with respect to the report card, we just released one in 2021, so it's still fairly fresh. But if you go back to our last report card in 2017, you really, lots of great content, but you really didn't see the terms asset management, in the report card, right? So we would talk about life cycle cost analysis and full infrastructure life cycle, but you didn't see specifically, kind of the terms asset management. And in the 2021 report card, it's virtually every other chapter, which delights me to see that the American Society of Civil Engineers are really embracing asset management best practices. I dare say 2025, you might even actually see the word asset management plans in the report card. So we're becoming a lot more conversant in asset management best practice. And with respect to the bill, the IIJA, I'm pleased that actually, if we have this conversation in a couple of weeks, next the first week of March is really the ASE legislative fly-in. So members from all over the United States will be flying into DC, and we'll have a chance to actually work directly with some of the congressional members to kind of help work on some of the implementation and execution components. We've been strong proponents of supporting kind of funding over financing, because we know a lot of the smaller systems are will be challenged. We're going to funnel a lot of the funding through SRF, which is great. It's an existing program. We can expedite the funding to get it to the people who need it. But the points that Amelia made are perfect, are on point, right? Of how do we prioritize these projects? How do we select the appropriate projects? How are we going to execute them? How do we measure success? Right. So that's, and we're very much promote a holistic infrastructure management. We know a lot of the funding is, there's funding for transportation, funding for water, funding for telco, separate buckets, and we're not allowed to mix cost centers. But we realize, we kind of need to take a holistic infrastructure approach when it comes to rebuilding some of these communities. And in that, ASCE, we're very much about many of our standards. Again, we've been working with infrastructure for quite some time. Standards like ASCE 7, which talks about, prepares you for hazards. 24 was about flood, ASCE standard 41 on seismic, and really our whole manual practice 140 on resiliency. And this all goes with a lot of the manuals that are out there with American Water Works Association, American Public Works Association, lots of great content out there, but trying to use these standards to help kind of fortify your asset management, best practice. And I think from an ISO 55000 perspective, what we're really seeing, is this conversation, and I think it goes back to one of our ALN members, Jack Dempsey, that managing assets versus asset management, and standards get into managing assets and how to take care of infrastructure, but it's really the asset management theory, the best practice that we in the U.S., quite frankly, are coming up to speed, and our neighbors are much better conversant in those practices, and we'll hear more from Ben and Ian, I'm sure. But really, this is a great time within 55,000. We're especially with some of the updates where we're looking at revamping 55,000 and 55,001 and spending a lot more time on the definitions of, value and risk, right? So it's a really good time to be having these conversations about, the infrastructure bill and what asset management means, for these projects.